Going over the website side of things first, you don't actually have to worry too much about the dashboard. It just has some useful information that you can use. Let's go to the variables tab, and you have two different types of variables that you can create. You have the global variables, which are marked with the green icon here. Everyone has access to these. Basically, it's in everyone's list by default. So, like if you were to create your own account with this system, it would already be in there because it exists. The other type of variable are private variables. They're marked with this kind of yellow-orange lock symbol. And these ones are only in your list, so no one else can see these. So when you go to create a new variable, you can define the name of the variable, and then you define its type. Now, I think by default, WebVar supports every value type from Resonite, and it supports URIs and ref IDs from from the object types. So, anyways, talking about private versus global, as I said earlier, private just means it'll only appear in your list. That's the one with the kind of orange lock icon. Global means that it will appear in everyone's list. The descriptions for these could be a little bit more descriptive, in my opinion. This says only you can access this variable. That's not entirely accurate. Even with private variables, anyone who has the link can access them, in air quotes, access, but only you'll be able to see them in your web dashboard. And then with global, everyone sees them in their web dashboard. Most of the variables you'll end up creating will probably end up being private. You can assign a default value if you want, and then anyone access, this just means that anonymous users are able to read and write the variable without authentication. And this is useful when you have a system that can, or that other people use that don't necessarily have a WebVar account. With this variable active, those users would still be able to hold values for themselves with that specific WebVar, basically. And then read only means that nothing can read or write to it, or nothing can write to it. Rather, anything can read it, but nothing can write to it uh, unless you specifically do so in this web interface. So that basically goes over all of this. I am going to create a private variable just to show how this kind of works. So I'm going to allow it anyone access so I can demonstrate exactly what that does. And then I'm going to make it read-only so that I can only change it in the web dashboard. Once you're done with all that, create variable, and it will pop up here. This button here is to copy the API URL, and we will be doing that for the Resonite side of things. This is the edit button. You can open this, you can see its value type, who owns it. I think this just means that it's you who owns it. It doesn't actually show your username. Um, this shows read and write permissions, and then API status. Obviously, this one's read only. You can choose to disable that either of these at any time, and then the your value thing. After you define it, you cannot change the default value, but if it's a read-only variable, your value will always be read if you're the owner of the variable. So if you set like a value in here, so my test string, then everyone will be able to read this value, but obviously only you can write to it in this interface if read only is enabled. You also have a handy read only check mark here. You can turn that off and on here. This button allows you to just view the information without being able to edit the value. And then, of course, the trash can deletes it. And I think that's about it for the web interface. Over here, we have the API Explorer. You can use this to test various variables and stuff before you attempt to use them in Resonite. And then over here is documentation. This just goes over like what each of these things, like examples for each of these things, basically. And I think that's about it.
Now, coming over to the Resonite side of things, there's not really a whole lot to go over here, so I think this will be brief. So, the first thing I'm going to go over is the flux involved. And the majority of the flux you're going to use is the get string and post string nodes. So they're both async nodes. So you will have to use a start async task. You will have to use a start async task node in order to use them. But essentially what they do is get string, as the name implies, allows you to get a value from the WebVar. And what you do is you just paste the WebVar URL into the URL string. Now, a couple of things to note here. The URLs are always the same except for where it says my variable, that will be replaced by your variable's name. And then there's a user ID at the end. Depending on the use case, you may or may not want to remove that, but I will show you that in a little bit. So when you use a get string, obviously you need to write the output. So we'll get a write node here. And the output is always going to be a string. So you will have to convert if you're using something along the lines of numbers and integers and stuff. That's there's usually like conversions you can parse the string for the specific numbers. All right, so when you get the value here, it will take a second to ping the server, and then once it does, it will write the message, the response, essentially, to this. And as you saw in the other section, I said my test string, which is what the value is. Now to change the value, it's very similar. You need a post string node, and of course you need the same URL. So the string here, this is your value, so this is what you would put in here. I'll just say value 2. And then you don't really have to do anything with the content here on the post string side, unless you were doing something like very advanced or something. But this is pretty much all you need in order to change the value of the WebVar. You just click call here. It will once again have a short delay on sending the value. But if I go over here now and I click call immediately, you'll see that the value will change. And the value didn't change. All right, it's read-only. Yeah, so if it wasn't read-only, this one would work. In fact, let me go ahead and change that real quick. Okay, so now that it is no longer read-only, I will demonstrate this once again and call this, and obviously we get the value out. So that is how you get and receive, or that's how you get and send values from within Resonite. Now, there is one more consideration, and that is the WebSocket version of it. So with the WebSocket, it uses the WebSocket client component, which expects a user. I think the user is always going to be whoever is running the code that is using this. So I'm going to put myself in here because I'm the only user in the session right now, but also because of the fact that I'm the one who has the system. So I'm going to copy the same URL that we have here, and I'm going to paste it in the URL here. Now, the difference between a WebSocket and the Protoflux is that you have to change the very first part of it where it says HTTPS. You have to change it to WSS. All right. And when you hit enter, it will say is connected. And then this will now be usable. So if we go into our Protoflux node browser, we can search for WebSocket, and we can send messages with the WebSocket text message sender, and we can receive messages using the WebSocket text message receiver. And this The receiver node takes the client, which we just drag the component into the client. And then, like with the get string, we do need to write the output unless we're using the values immediately, which I won't be because this is just for demonstration purposes. But if you're not using the values immediately, you want to write it, and so that this will write this value every time this receives an update from the server. Likewise, this one is used to update the values like we did with the post string node. So I'm going to put this, I'll just move these up. So this also requires a reference to the WebSocket client. We just drag that over here, create a reference, and that just goes in here. And then the data will be whatever data we want to use. This is our value. So we'll say WebSocket value. It has 3 pulses, one for send start, one for on sent, and then one for sent error. So I'm going to pulse this. It will happen very quickly, but obviously it says on sent, and this actually should have updated already. I'm not sure why it didn't, but regardless, we can test it using the get string here. You just call that. Anyways, the reason you'd want to use WebSockets is for updating values immediately. So if you wanted the value of this to come in when the system spawns, for example, then it's probably better to use the WebSocket because it will update this when the WebSocket connects. And then it should be the value that's stored in here. I'm not sure why this wasn't updating with the other node, but regardless of that, that's how you use WebVars in Resonite. If you have any questions, you can ask in the forums, and I think that'll be about it. Thank you for tuning in.